Hello and welcome to Crucible of Worlds for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing one of my favourites. This is a deck I have in paper. It's Monowhite Painter. And this particular version is a Grindstone Forge build, which means it has the Painter combo in as well as Stoneforge Mystic. But we've also got this Staff the Storyteller that I've been trying out lately. So, what is this deck and what does it do? So, we assemble Painter Servant and Grindstone. Painter Servant makes all cards the same colour in our opponent's library. Grindstone mills their whole library if they're all the same colour. That's our combo to win the game, but that's only one dimension of the deck. We have a whole other selection of ways of winning the game. Firstly, this Stoneforge Mystic that I mentioned, which is a card that on its own requires our opponent to deal with it or lose the game often, because this, putting a Kaldra into play, does a lot of work, right? This is going to be able to smash our opponent down pretty quickly. And the Stoneforge Mystic is going to absorb some removals and counter spells, which means our combo is going to be easier to land when the time comes. Now, to facilitate this, we've also got a bunch of just good white stuff. So we've got Esper Sentinels, we've got Canonist, which are very good in our deck because it's like a one-sided deafening silence, really, because we are mainly casting artifacts anyway. We've got Mother of Runes, which can protect our Painted Servant, and because we're naming a colour, we can make sure it's protected from everything. We don't have to sort of guess. We've got this other package that I've been experimenting with lately of the Staff of the Storyteller. Now this combines quite well with the fact that we're running living weapons, so these will put a counter on our Staff of the Storyteller. We also have Urza Saga, which can make 2 tokens, which is 2 cards for our Staff of the Storyteller. So we can outdraw a lot of decks in the format just because of Staff of the Storyteller. And you know what combos really well with Staff of the Storyteller? A second Staff of the Storyteller, which is why we're running 4 of them. They are especially good in multiples, because the first one immediately gives you access to 2 cards because it charges up the first one. Now, the glue that kind of holds this deck together is Oswald Fiddlebender. This allows us to tutor for the bits we need at any given time. So that can be our Painted Servant, it can be our Grindstone, or it can be a few silver bullets that I'll talk about now. So the first of these is Portable Hull. This is the removal spell that we can go and find that can deal with things like Collector Roof. This is something we just pull off of the Oswald using our Ancient Dens or as a Saga tokens as our 0 drops to cycle up into the Portal Hull. Then we got this selection here, which is a bunch of singletons that we're going to be looking for. So a Pithing Needle, this can come off of both the Urza Saga or the Oswald can go and find it if needed. We have Retrofitter Foundry, which I think is quite the potent engine with Staff the Storyteller, right? Every time we create a server, we also get a card. So this means 3 mana, we're making a 1/1 and drawing a card. So that's just infinite 3 mana Elvish Visionaries, which can also upscale into other things as well. And when they do upscale, we do get a token as well. So as we're just going through the motions and going up the chain and getting towards a 4/4, we are getting extra cards because each time it sacrifices a token, but then creates a new one, which is all this cares about. We have a Skrelv, which I've not really had much luck with yet, but I haven't really had a chance to play it. Every time I've played it in the deck, I've never really drawn it, or it's always been matchups where it doesn't really do anything. However, on paper, this card looks pretty good. It's a tutorable Mother of Runes for the most part. Not quite the same, but close enough. So we're hoping to FIDDLEBEND this into play at sometimes. And then we have Crucible of Worlds, because of course we do. But this isn't just a cute thing that I like to play because it's my favourite card. It's got a lot of text that's relevant. In fact, all of this text, right? It's one line of text, but it does so much in this deck. So we've got 4 Wastelands. So we can just Wasteland lock our opponent with Crucible. We've got 4 as a Saga, so we can just make continual streams of tokens and beat our opponent down. We also have 2 Horizon Canopy, so we can just turn it into a draw engine. And the Eiganjo obviously doesn't have the most text with it, but it's something we can use as a removal spell and then also have as a land if we need it later. So Crucible of Worlds is getting a lot of value here, and it's not something that we're going to be like wanting to draw every game, but we have the option of tutoring for it. So with our Fiddlebender, we can either turn a Canonist, a Painted Servant, or a Staff of the Storyteller into a Crucible and just get going that way, which feels quite strong. So that's pretty much the deck. We're a sort of slightly Death and Taxes-y, slightly combo-y. We've got a lot of stuff going on, and we also have a really strong ability to grind from the Staff of the Storyteller, which is a very potent card. Staff of the Storyteller also creates a guy that can pick up equipment if the needs be, as well as being something that can pressure planeswalkers a little bit, because it's a flying guy. Alright, that's the main deck sorted. Now, sideboard, we've got a few obvious ones here. So we've got 4 Swords to Plowshares, because sometimes we're going to be in matchups where we need to kill our opponent's creatures, and that's what these are for. Then we've got 3 Deafening Silence. These are mainly for the Storm matchup. We already have Canonist, which is great for Elves as well as Storm, But Deafening Silence is coming in for the Storm deck because they tend to be quicker than Elves, so we need a 1-drop that can really interact with them. And we've got a lot of bad cards in that matchup as well. We've got a Lion Sash. This is a tutorable equipment that can mess with graveyards. Now, it's not great for messing with like Reanimator graveyards because it's quite slow. But for the sort of grindier Uro decks and sometimes the Murktide decks, this is going to be quite useful. We have 3 Containment Priest here. In other builds of this deck, I've run Hushbringer, but obviously with Stoneforge Mystic, we don't really want to be running Hushbringer if we can avoid it. I think Containment Priest does a lot of useful things. So this can stop Green Sun Zeniths, it can stop Reanimator, it can stop Show and Tell, so it kind of just hits lots of things. So I think this is actually quite a good one to have right now. We've got a single Lorana the Third Path, which is something we can bounce with the Eiganjo, so it's just a flexible, reusable disenchant. And we got 2 Much Other Wildlight, because sometimes we will need more disenchant. So we've effectively got 3 disenchant effects. These 2 can also hit things like Marit Lage as well. And we've got this Grafdigger's Cage, which is another thing on top of our Soul Guide Lantern that we can tutor up with our Urza Saga. That's pretty much it. I've played versions of this deck with Leyline before, and that's great, and that's fine, but hopefully, I got all my Reanimator out of my system yesterday, because I played against quite a bit of Reanimator. I want to try these Containment Priests in other matchups, so they've got more utility than just against the Reanimator matchup or the dedicated graveyard decks, because these are obviously good against things like Elves, which I find can give us some trouble sometimes. Alright, that's the deck. Before we jump into a league, it's time for a quick plug. Like, comment, subscribe. These are free ways to help me out. If you'd like to become a member of the channel or give me a little thank you for doing content, you can do that via either the YouTube membership or go onto my Patreon, which is in the description below, and help me out. Alternatively, just come onto our Discord and just chat about Magic in general and the decks I like to play. And that's a free Discord. You don't have to be a member to be a part of that, so why not come and say hi? Link also in the description. Okay, let's just get to playing some Legacy. Right, this is our opening hand for game 1. It looks like a keeper to me. We've got the ability to find our combo using Oswald, but we also just have a really powerful draw engine if the game's going to go a little bit long. We do have a little piece of removal, which is something that's a little bit infrequent in our main deck, shall we say. So this is going to be a keep for me. We even have a basic to lead out on, so we can guarantee dropping a staff if that's how we want to play this game out. Snow-covered forest. Simon Spirit Guide. This could be the Hypergenesis deck. Looks like 2 Spirit Guides. Sure. Magus of the Moon. Okay, this is going to be the red-green initiative deck. Now, we don't really care about Magus very much because we have a basic Plains, which is one of the reasons I wanted to keep this hand. Alright, Karakas. Not so useful, but we'll take this and we will deploy our Retrofitter Foundry and get that on the go. This can give us creatures to take back the initiative, but obviously Staff of Storyteller is going to do that as well. The second Karakas is a little bit annoying. It means if we want to play a 3-drop, we have to lose a land for it. But that's not the end of the world necessarily. Alright, they don't have a... Well, they might have a follow-up in their second main phase, but so far we're just getting hit for 2, which I can deal with. Okay, another mountain. So we could try and race to a combo here, but I think we're best off trying to just play this little game for now and developing our mana. And this will give us cards, it will give us ways of taking the initiative from our opponent if they drop an initiative creature on the next turn. And obviously we've got plenty of basics to fetch, so the initiative's going to be good here. Thankfully we haven't drawn any Urza Sagas yet, because they're not very good in the face of a Blood Moon, as it turns out. We don't really have removal for this Blood Moon main deck either. But we got Staff of Storyteller, we're going to be drawing some cards. If our opponent doesn't have anything else and they're just attacking for 2, then I don't really mind that. I think they should be attacking here. Yeah, there we go. Another Plains is a very good draw for it. So, what are we doing here? We probably want to draw a card with our Staff of Storyteller first, just to get most information about what we're doing for our turn. Alright, that's a pretty good card to have. I think we're just going to be on pretty much regular beatdown here. When we get the Kaldra off of this, because that's the quickest way to end the game, and it's going to be very difficult for a red-green deck to deal with that. And we can come in for 1 with our Spirit Token. So, our Kaldra, because it's got Living Weapon, it's going to put a counter on our Staff of Storyteller, because it's going to create a Germ token. So it's going to be a cantripping Kaldra that we can put into play next turn. It's going to be some sort of removal spell on our Stoneforge, or is it just going to be like a Chalice or something? A Chalice for 1. Sure. That's not really going to help you now, opponent. They can attack for 2 still. Fury. Okay. Or they... Yeah, so it's Caves of Chaos Adventurer, as we thought it's the initiative deck. So this is going to kill our Stoneforge and our token here. So our Kaldra is not going to do its thing, which is a shame. But we have the ability to make tokens. We've got an Oswald. We've got lots of stuff here. The Grindstone obviously isn't really castable anymore because of the chalice. But we can fetch a Grindstone with an Oswald later on. If we need to, we've got plenty of tokens to sacrifice for it. Okay, so we've drawn another Plains, which is a great draw. We have some choices now. We'll play out our basic Plains. Then we'll begin with an Oswald Fiddlebender. And then we're probably just making a Retrofitters. And then we can use that to sacrifice for a 1/1 servo. And then we can use that servo next turn to go and find a Grindstone. And then we can use the Retrofitters itself to find a Painter. A Legion Warboss, sure. So their clock is getting bigger. But we can swallow up the 1/1. I don't really care about getting this Magus off the moon other than the fact that it deals damage. I think I'm just going to leave this here for now. It blocks. This can block the 1/1. We'll make a servo. Let's create a little colourless guy. This will put a counter on our Staff of Storyteller. So now we have a Grindstone that we don't want in our hand, which means we only got one left in our deck, which is a little bit awkward. This Horizon Canopy will just be a mountain. That's fine. I kind of wish we got the Batterskull, because at least that's something we could deploy now. So what are we doing with our turn? We can turn this into a Grindstone now. I think that's fine. I think we want to do it now, because so we don't want to draw into our other Grindstone, because then we're kind of locked underneath this chalice then, because we can't shoot it for the portable hole either. So we'll sacrifice this and get ourselves a Grindstone. Now, what are we doing? So we have 2 mana here that can make a Retrofits token, and we can draw a card with our Staff of Storyteller. I think we're probably incentivized to draw that card now, just in case we get something useful here. A Painter's Servant is very much a useful card. This can block a 1/3, so I'm going to play this out. Do we play this out now, or do we make a token and put a counter on our thing? Is that better? Guess the Painter's Servant can block the 1/2. Sure, we'll play the Painter's Servant out. And we will name, I guess black is fine. We don't want to name red and enable their furies. We could have named white and potentially make them think about Solitude. Okay, so our opponent does not have lethal damage right now. They need to kill our Painter's Servant. Alright, they're scooping it up because they don't have a way of killing it. We untap and we Grindstone them out. Excellent. Sideboard wise, let's have a look here. So, some of these cards are going to be pretty useful, some of them not so much. Swords to Plowshares, we are going to want these. Around the Third Path, we're going to want March of Otherworldly Light and the other March of Otherworldly Light even. So we're going to want these things. What do we not want? Portable Hole is okay here. Skrelv, again, is okay here. Our Graveyard Hate is not necessary, so that's something that can go. Our opponent's probably going to be bringing in more Artifact Destruction. So we don't want to necessarily play into a Meltdown. Pithing Needle, I think we can get rid of that. Maybe we were supposed to get rid of Skrelv because it doesn't deal very well with blocking and stuff. This is just a thing to stop things getting removed. But that's not going to make any difference with a Meltdown, so maybe the Skrelv goes because we're getting all these other things that are just better for us. Canonist, probably not great here either because our opponent's just going to be able to play 1 spell a turn and that's all they're going to need. And if they're playing multiple spells, they're probably going to be Mana Rocks. So then we're looking at one more cut to fit all this in. We could cut the Crucible of Worlds, but this will allow us to Wasteland lock our opponent, which we could do underneath their own Trinisphere type effects and win the game that way. We could trim on the Staff of Storyteller, although I do think it's very good about taking the initiative. We can't really trim on Grindstone because our opponent's going to be Blood Mooning and stuff. Maybe we trim on a Saga because it's so bad in the face of Blood Moon. I think we can do that. And then these come out. Yeah, so that's 60. I'm going to run it like this. There is an argument just for having a Tamer Priest because it's a guy, so we can use it as a 2-mana removal spell. But I'm going to try it like this and see how we fare. Alright, we can't keep this. We have no access to white mana. We've got this Kaldra that doesn't do anything. This is not a good hand. This is a much better hand. We've got Loran for the thing. We've got 1/2 of our combo. We've got some disruption. We've got 2 basic lands that we're going to keep because we're going to throw the 3rd one back. This is a good hand. Not an amazing hand, but it's fine. It doesn't all get locked under a chalice either. We can trade 1 for 1 with a chalice if they have that. it stops our mother but doesn't stop the rest of our hand, and then we can blow it up and get our mother eventually. So we'll keep this, and we'll throw back one of these planes, and we'll say done. Our opponent also mulligan to 6. But that's pretty expected for our opponent's deck. They need a collection of certain items in their opening hand to really do their thing. Cavern of Souls, probably naming human. Warrior. Okay. Chromox. Notably, this won't cast a Magus of the Moon because it's on Warrior. So 1 and 1, is this going to be a Chalice? I hope so. It feels like it's Chalice. Yep, sure. We don't care about that. So we could just Wasteland here. I think we will Wasteland here. Our opponents have got 2 cards in hand. So if we can take them off of any relevant plays, that's going to be pretty good. The thing we're scared about is 4-drops. It's going to be harder for them to make a 4-drop. Alright, they did not have a land there. Pretty happy about that Wasteland. We've got another Wasteland if we need it. We can't cast these because of the Chalice. But if we get to the stage where we're going to play Loran, we might even just play it on the Chromox depending on what the situation looks like at the time. Okay, a basic land. An Esper Sentinel, we don't really want to cast that. I think we are just going to cast our Painted Servant here. I think we'll name White. This means we can pitch cards to March Otherworldly Light. That's the only thing that really matters in our deck. I don't think things being white is going to affect what our opponent does. Right, what have we got here? The Stone Brain. Interesting. This can get rid of some of our bits and pieces. That's an interesting one. If they Stone Brain and take out Grindstone, we cannot grind them anymore. Is that important, given our hand? That is an interesting one. We could just take out their Chromox and just beat them down. And if at any point we draw a Karakas, we can just replay this and just get them that way. We do have a lot of 1-drops in hand, which kind of makes me want to hit the Chalice. Maybe we're supposed to hit the Chalice. It does unlock a lot of our hand. But if we hit the Chromox, they might not even be able to do the Stone Brain thing either. I think we're going to hit the Chromox. Let's just try and put them in the dirt. We don't really want to be activating our Loran because we don't want to give our opponents cards and we're trying to constrict their mana. So we have a removal for initiative guys. If they introduce initiative into the game somehow, like the spirit guides or whatever, we can't actually plow because of the source of Plowshares, which might come back to bite us. But our opponent did not make a land this turn, so that's pretty good. I would like to draw a Karakas, please. We did not draw a Karakas. Right, we'll go to tax. I don't think it's worth trying to use Loran to draw and get a Karakas here. I think we just want to keep our opponent floundering without any mana. We don't have the fastest clock in the world, but we are relatively ahead on board here. And obviously if they play a land, it gets Wastelanded. So it's going to be very hard for them to play a 4-drop unless they draw Spirit Guides or Chromoxes type stuff. But the moment we draw a Karakas, this game ends. Right, they got Cavern of Souls. Sure. Are they going to name Grindstone? Feels likely. Sure. So we're going to lose our Grindstone. They're going to see our deck and how we sideboarded. We don't want to fire this Wasteland until our turn because we might have a better play. It uses all of our mana, so we'll see what the Wasteland achieves. So they've already got the mana from their thing. I don't think we're drawing a card here with the Loran. And leave our opponent in the dirt. A Plains. Okay, so this means we are Wastelanding this Cavern, I think. The other option was to leave the land in play and try and get up to 5 mana. But I think we just need to make sure our opponent doesn't get to play this game. We can draw an Oswald and turn the Painter into a Crucible and then just keep strip mining our opponent whenever they play anything. This Painter is just painting stuff right now. Not actually going to let us in the game. This is a little bit awkward. Puts our opponent to 10. I'd quite like to find... And as a Saga would be fine at this moment in time. Or a Staff the Storyteller would let us get a little bit more pressure on the board as well as an evasive creature. A Fury. Okay, we do need to find action here. I think we are going to draw a card. As much as I hate this, I think I would like to draw a card. What do they exile to this? Sin Spirit Guide. A March for the Worldly Light. That's a pretty good draw. We can blow up the Chalice at end of turn. Do we draw our opponent into a land? No. Okay, let's get rid of this Chalice. And we've unlocked our hand here. So we can begin with an Esper Sentinel. That way if they have anything to cast, we get a card of it. Whereas if we play the Mother and they just immediately kill it with something, we don't. So we get a Mother of Runes and an Esper Sentinel. And then we have a Plow. Well, we have 2 Plows up for any creatures they want to play. If they spend time playing Chalice of the Void instead, we at least get to hit them for a little bit of damage here. They could have another Fury, just clear both of these out, which would be a little bit annoying. Since imagine a lot of the cards in their hand are stranded anyway. It's not really an issue for them to 2-for-1 themselves here. Stoneforge Mystic. This is one of the ones we want. We will leave this Mother of Runes back to keep our guys safe. Say yes to this. We don't actually have anything to find. But this is going to let us put our scary things into play. Now we're holding up the plow. I think it's going to take quite a lot for us to lose this game. It's not impossible though. Another Fury can wipe... Well, it can wipe everything but the Stoneforge because we have the Mother of Runes to protect it. Another plow. Take this. Put the Kaldra in. Ourselves a germ. So our opponent gets one draw step to answer this. Our opponent says they're playing 20 lands and have drawn 0 so far. I did draw the cavern. So it's not strictly speaking true. Unless they were sandbagging the cavern until they had a good play. Alright, so we just took the mana out from underneath our opponent and kind of bashed them up. These initiative decks are pretty vulnerable to mana disruption, and we just played into that. So we are 1-0 pretty quick. Let's go to round 2. We're on the play for round 2. We have a Mother of Runes into as a Saga game, which seems pretty serviceable. In your opening hands with this deck, you generally want to have access to either Urza Saga, both parts of your combo, or an Oswald. Those are the sort of thing we're trying to keep in our opening hands. This one is pretty fine to me. We're not making tokens on immediately either, because we're just playing out this Plains and playing out the old school Mother of Runes. If our opponent removes this, that's pretty good for us, because we then just drop the next one. And they've wasted their turn doing that. No play and a basic mountain. That makes me think our opponent is playing Painter. So we will play an Urza Saga. We'll play... Do you want a Skrelv here? I guess we can have a Skrelv. That can mix things up a little bit. We'll keep this Mother of Runes back. Our opponent's going to be having things like Lightning Bolt and Fury in their deck. I like to be able to protect something. Yeah, this definitely feels like Painter. This is going to be a Fable the Mirror Breaker. Sure. This Skrelv is also going to pump our Saga token. There's a Fury. We get to keep one of our guys. I think Skrelv does pump our Mother of Runes. It does pump our thing. This is interesting. I think it's going to be the Skrelv. We've got another Mother of Runes in hand if we need it anyway. I've not really had a chance to play with Skrelv, so this would be a test to see how useful it is. But the fact that it pumps our Saga token is going to be relevant when they have a 2-2. So we're going to be playing out our Plains this turn. This Ethersworn Canonist is not going to do an awful lot in this matchup. We just pass, and we'll do an Urza Saga token. We'll trade with this Goblin Shaman if we have to. I feel our opponent is ahead in this game right now, though. They've got a decent mana advantage because they've got City of Traitors plus this treasure token. We just got another Fable. Okay, maybe they are not Painter and they're just sort of like mono-red stuff. That's interesting. So this gives hexproof but not protection. So this is noticeably worse in this situation. Okay. I don't think our opponent is on Painter anymore. Which is good for us, I think. The Painter Mirror is... Actually, well, I like the white deck in the Painter Mirror. Let's create one of these tokens. Are we just trying to clear out their board? It's tough, actually, because if we make another guy, we just have more guys. I think we just have to let this one come in this time, and then we just have more and larger constructs for next turn. I think that's going to be a more powerful way of operating. Let's see what we draw. A Fiddlebender. That's a pretty good one. I think we are still just on the old construct train, though. And we get to tutor something. We're just going to pump our guys some more. What would we like here? Retrofitter Foundry is certainly quite useful. We can always put Pithing Needle on Fable the Mirror Breaker. On Reflection of Kiki Chiki. Yeah, I think that's probably where we need to be. We don't want our opponent copying a bunch of stuff. So we'll play out this replacement as Saga. And we can start making some more tokens. I think we just have to hold back here. We can block and trade with the Lilia and also clean up the Goblin Shaman token and then start producing more tokens that way. And this is just a 2-2 while the Pithing Needle is in play. I imagine our opponent doesn't have a huge amount of ways of interacting with our Pithing Needle in the main deck, but post-board they're going to have that 4-mana spell that blows up a whole bunch of artifacts. It's probably going to be bad news for us, but we'll worry about that when we get there. Right, so as I can... What is this? This looks like a hard-cast Fury. Nope, 6 mana. What is this? 6 mana. Batterskull Smashing? Could be a Batterskull Smashing. Could be... Yeah, so there's a Batterskull Smashing. So this is going to kill this. So this is going to choose this creature. And we'll pay the life because we can't pay anything else. Get protection from red. Well, it's hexproof, so it can't be targeted. Okay, so now these have to double block the Lilia. We only lose one of our tokens in this exchange. Legion Warboss, sure. So they take out one of our tokens and we get to take their guy out. That's not so bad. We're left with 2/2s and we have an active Urza Saga. We can play this out and we can play a Mother of Runes, which should hopefully let us dominate combat in coming turns. So we have a choice of... We could play the Fiddlebender out, right? And try and get them with the combo. But I honestly think we're better off just making tokens here. Because this means we'll have a 3/3 in... Well, we'll have 2 3/3s in combat. So our opponent can't really attack into what we've got in play right now. Alright, our opponent's just conceded at that point. Excellent. So, we're going to see Blood Moons from our opponent. We're going to see all sorts of stuff. So, what we're going to want here is very similar to what we wanted in the last round. So, we're going to want these Round of the Third Path. We're going to want Much of Other Body Light. We're going to want removal spells for their big scary guys. They're not going to have Meltdown because they run a lot of artifacts of their own. But they will have the thing that blows up 4 artifacts. Which I'm not a massive fan of from where we are now. So, Pithing Needle has some text but isn't great. Soulguide Lantern is not going to do anything here. The Canonist feels pretty bad. They're not really double spelling unless it's an artifact in the first place. So that's another cut. Kind of tempted to cut a Saga here because they might bring in the Blood Moons. A Blood Moon isn't great against us at the end of the day. But it's probably just about good enough. Maybe we'll trim 1 Saga. And that gives us 1 more slot to cut. Is it Skrelv again? Maybe it's a liability against all their artifact hate. We'll go like this and see how we fare. Yeah, this hand seems alright. We've got 1 drop and we've got some nice 2 drops. This one gets around artifact destruction really well. We are perfectly fine against Blood Moon. So let's see if they start with a Chalice, City of Traitors, Chrome Mox. Okay, we're looking at something like a Rabble Master or Warboss on turn 1. Could be the Lilia. That does mean we get to cast our... Okay, 3-ball. Alright, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. Alright, we're not casting any spells in the immediate future here. So if we play out Urza Saga on 1 and then play Painted Servant, that's going to be 3 mana, isn't it? Yeah, we don't want Disappearing Lands, especially when they have a Blood Moon in play. Yep, so there's the Blood Moon. So if we were to play the Urza Saga, we just got Strip Mine there. So we're not going to be able to cast a spell until our 3rd turn here. Alright. If our opponent doesn't make another land, we can Portable Hole their mana in the Chrome Mox. What is this going to be? A Simian Spirit Guide. That's not a very impressive threat. So what do we want to play here? Our opponent's got no cards in hand. I think the quickest route to victory is probably through a Kaldra. Do you want the Kaldra or do you want the Batterskull? Maybe it's the Batterskull here. No, you want the Kaldra. If they've got all the stuff that blows up artifacts, the indestructible artifact is just going to be way better. So our opponent's hellbent. If they don't play a removal spells turn. Alright, they just conceded because they're just going to lose the Kaldra. So this match showcased the fact that you don't really need Grindstone to win. Stoneforge Mystic just completely wins games on its own. That's what it does. If you don't deal with your opponent's Stoneforge and you don't have an unfair way of winning the game like a combo, you're just going to lose the Kaldra, and that's what happened in both of these games. And also, yeah, the first round was a bit similar in that. So we are 2-0 pretty quickly. Let's go to round 3. Right, this hand is 1, 2, 3, kill them. We can take a turn off to play Mother of Runes if that's the thing we want. So I think we will keep this hand. Our opponent mulligan to 6. There's plenty of things. Oh, a swamp. Not a big fan of swamp. I think we are just going to go for the quickest route to victory here. Do 1, 2, and kill them on 3. Swamp makes me think combo. Could be... Okay, Underground Sea definitely makes me think combo. We need to... Night's Whisper. This is a Doomsday list. most likely. Will our Painter's Servant resolve is an important question that I'm going to ask right now. We can get dazed here, which is unfortunate, but I think we need to race because Doomsday is a horrible matchup. We need to really come in underneath it. We'll name black so we can't be snuffed out. And our opponent has to either kill one of our permanents or win the game. So they can't do a Doomsday pass a turn pile. We're insulated against grief and stuff if they have those, because the only card we care about in our hand at this precise moment in time is our land. Right, so our opponent's turn here. Are we dead? Is one of our permanents dead? Or can they somehow discard our entire hand? Okay, we've got a Brainstorm, which is hopefully a Desperation Brainstorm. I do believe that our opponent is on Doomsday. That's where I've seen Night's Whisper. I don't think I've seen it anywhere else, really. Maybe Ad Nauseam Tendril variant could realistically run a Night's Whisper, because they're a deck that requires a critical mass of cards. And a Ponder off of the Underground Sea. It is still possible that Doomsday and kill us this turn. If they have Dark Ritual, Doomsday, and a cantrip, they might be able to get... Well, they might have to have 2 cantrips, I think. But it's certainly possible they can kill us here. Which is why Doomsday is so terrifying. Especially when you're a white deck. Alright. We got the turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 there. So I'll certainly take that. What are we looking at here? We are under the impression that our opponent's playing Doomsday. Which means... How do we approach this one? Pithing Needle has a little bit of text. Saga Lantern doesn't really do very much. Crucible of Worlds can be okay if you get into one of those weird, long, drawn-out games, but we don't really want to get into one of those. Well, I guess we kind of do, because it means our opponent isn't winning the game immediately. Being able to Wasteland lock our opponent is something that I would very much like to do. I think it's just going to be the Deafening Silences. Now, our opponent could have... I'll take out this Portable Hole as well. Our opponent could have Shouldered, but we're going to rely on our Karakas to deal with that, rather than bringing the Plows that will be dead otherwise. Stoneforge Mystic builds are quite... Well, they're not quite good, but they're better against Doomsday because it gives us a thing that can actually threaten our opponent and race. We need to trim one more thing. It probably is a Staff, because that's quite a slow, grindy thing. Again, Crucible of Worlds is quite a slow card, but if we find ourselves in the spot where we want to find it, it means we can absolutely ruin our opponent, because they won't have any mana, and obviously they're trying to cast a black spell and a blue spell. So if we can just strip all the lands from underneath them, then we can get them in the lock. Alright, I think we will submit like this and see how we fare. Our opponent could have things like Hurkyl's Recall, which will be good against us, as well as Energy Flux. These are the sort of the big haymakers they can bring to mess with their artifact stuff. Obviously, Stoneforge Mystic doesn't mind about that too much, because even if they bounce it, you can just replay it. Alright, Deafening Silence is a card we boarded in, so I'm happy to see that. Stoneforge Mystic is our quickest threat, so I think we'll keep this. Well, our quickest threat is 1, 2, 3, right? But as a singular card, this is alright. We have to watch out for Thought Seizes. They can take out a load of stuff. Nothing we can really do about that, but we'll see. Hopefully our opponent starts on a Ponder rather than a Dark Ritual, Doomsday, and kill us. Okay, we're going to lose the game. Yeah. So our opponent's cast Doomsday, so we're just going to wait for them to construct their pile. I imagine it won't take them that long to construct this pile, because it's going to be one where they've done this numerous times with the turn 1 Doomsday. There's nothing on board that they're trying to play around. They maybe have to guess what we've got in our hand. The Deafening Silence can hopefully slow them down a turn. We also have a Pithing Needle, which can name one of the Cyclers. So we'll have to see what our opponent leaves up, and whether the Needle or the Silence is where we need to go here. Right, a very quick pile from our opponent. I cannot see any Cyclers in here. There's one Street Wraith. Is that it? Just the one Street Wraith? Just one Street Wraith. Okay. So the Pithing Needle is going to be better because they've got a Cycler pile. Now, if they have a Dazer here or something, we cannot win this game, basically. We need to resolve Pithing Needle and hope that that works. Edge of Autumn we know is in their pile at this point. So maybe we name Edge of Autumn, but I think Street Wraith is also in their pile. Also, there's no Lion's Eye Diamond in their exile zone here. How many days is 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. They have no days. How many Force of Wills? 1, 2, 3. So they have a Force of Will in their hand. So what we cast here is probably not resolving. That is tough. Because of the Lion's Eye Diamond not being in their pile, in their exile zone, I think we try the Deafening Silence. I don't think this is going to resolve, sadly. Alright, that might have bought us a turn. Alright. It's bought us a turn. Now the problem is, we do have to play the Stoneforge Mystic this turn because we need a way of pressuring our opponent's life total, because these things don't stop them from winning, it slows them down. And if we slow down a turn to try and slow them down a turn, doesn't achieve anything. We've got to hope this Deafening Silence is doing enough. So we'll do this. We'll play out the Stoneforge. They got Force of Will. There it is. What do they exile? A Brainstorm. Okay, so our opponent can't cast any more spells this turn. Over to your opponent. There's a Tundra. Okay. There's a Consider. So I have one card left in their library, which is going to be their Thassa's Oracle. Is there any way that we can impact what our opponent is doing here? We can hope they've messed up their pile. That's not really going to get us anywhere. I don't really want to show them the staff if I don't have to. So we'll play out this Plains. We'll play out this Painter's Servant. We'll name Blue. Make them... I don't know what's going to make them think. Maybe we Spirit Guide Pyroblast. There's a Plow. Sure. Opponent's got one card in hand, one card in their library. It's going to be the Thassa's Oracle, unless they made a horrible mistake with their pile. I suspect they have not made a horrible mistake with their pile. There's Thassa's Oracle. We will concede the game. Okay, this matchup is horrible, as you can clearly see. So, is there anything we can do differently? I don't think so. We didn't see a sideboard Duke in their sideboard either. We do have options of playing just more creatures that attack. So maybe instead of Staff the Storyteller here, we can just play Containment Priests, just because they attack for 2 damage. I don't hate that. It's not great, is it? But maybe that's what we're working with here. The round on the third path isn't really going to achieve anything. I don't think it's worth playing the Grafdigger's Cage to shut down Deep Analysis. Right, I think this is what we're rolling with here. Just need to get some guys. So the game on the draw is always going to be a heavy favour for our opponent. So what do we have here? We have 1 drop into Stoneforge. Alright, we can keep this. We can try and race them and also shut down their mana with a Wasteland. This will mean that our opponent can't kill our Stoneforge, so it's going to be more likely to do its thing. However, they can counterspell it. So I think we play out the Saga. We can use that as a way of attacking our opponent's life total. Our opponent did not mulligan, so I'm not particularly confident that we're going to win this one. Maybe they will be trying to just cantrip and stuff. Okay, so this is not a black source. This is a cantrip or a plow. Sure. I absorbed a piece of removal that would have been otherwise aimed at our Stoneforge. I think we're supposed to Saga into Stoneforge here. If this gets Daze, it shuts their mana back a turn, which I don't mind. Sure. We do have another one, so we can do the same play next turn if we want to. We can Daze and Wasteland, but that shuts down our ability to make a construct token. So it'll be very much all in on the Kaldra. Alright, so this is a different land here. Is this going to be a Dark Ritual turn? Got a horrible feeling it is. A Duress. Okay, so we're going to lose our Batterskull. Not fine, but acceptable. Alright. Our game plan has now changed. We're going to play a Wasteland. We're going to Wasteland our opponent, so they can't Daze. Then we're going to cast a Painter's Servant. We'll name black for the purpose of Snuff Out. I don't think we saw Snuff Out, but you never know. Cycling, sure. So they know we have a land in hand, so they know that we have the kill next turn if they don't do anything. So this is representing Swords to Plowshares. Is there anything we can do here to get around Plow hitting us? I don't think so. We just go and get ourselves a Grindstone. So we can try and grind our opponent, but if they have a Plow here, that sets us back a long way. I think we do have to do it though. Like, put our opponent to the test. Alright, we put them to the test and we won. We could have tricked ourselves into losing the game there. Do they have that spell that lets them shuffle stuff in? Doesn't look like it. Alright, we managed to get a win versus Doomsday. So we're running pretty hot. This matchup I think is horrible. I do think Stoneforge Mystic helps because it's a threat that can actually clock them very quickly on its own. Especially since you play your turn 1 playing your Deafening Silence or whatever, and then your turn 2 playing your threat. I think that helps a great deal. But yeah, we got a little bit fortunate, but I'll take it. We are 3-0. Let's go into round 4. We're on the draw. We don't have a 1-drop play, which is a little bit annoying here. But we do have some things that our deck wants to do in a big way. The Kaldra is a bit awkward. I think we will keep. It's on the low end of keeps here because we don't have a 1-drop, but the 2-drops we have are pretty good. We've basically got all the good 2-drops from our deck. So, all right, we will play a basic plains. Flooded Strand could mean something like a Doomsday deck. Could mean something like a control deck. Could be. It's unlikely to be something like Delver because it didn't make a turn 1 play. So I think we're either in the combo or the control spectrum, rather than sort of aggro. All right, a basic mountain. That could be all sorts of things. Okay, so we'll play out this basic plains. I think we will activate. We will not activate. We'll play this. We'll play this Stoneforge first, actually. This can get us the Batterskull, which is something we can actually hardcast in the not too distant future if we have to. If they counter this, it means that our combo is going to be the way that we're going to try and win this game. A Brainstorm. All right. Maybe they're brainstorming for a Lightning Bolt to hit this with. Now, we don't know. I suspect the red mana there is just a splash for Pyroblast and possibly Blood Moon out of the sideboard. That's what I would normally expect from seeing Tundra and Mountain together like this. Like some sort of Shark Tail variant, maybe. All right, so this is in, so we're getting a card out of it, at least. Which means we're not going to draw the Batterskull later on. This probably lets them know that we have Kaldra in hand. So they might just spend their next turn prismatic ending our creature here. That's what I would imagine. Yep. White and red. Oh no, they have a Stoneforge of their own. Interesting. What are they going to find? Is it going to be a Kaldra? Opponent reveals Batterskull. Okay, so we've got dueling Batterskulls, have we? Interesting. So I think we play the Wasteland. We strip out their Tundra. We activate this. We jam the Kaldra down their throat. In comes the boy. Sure, so our opponent needs to have a white mana if they want to deploy their thing. I imagine they probably have a Kaldra in hand as well since they didn't get it. They got the Batterskull. But we also have a Batterskull incoming next turn as well. As this Kaldra token. If our opponent misses on land, then I think we are well away. But obviously our opponent's got a grip full of cards if they miss on land, which means if they do find mana, they might be able to stabilize. So we do need to put this game away with some expediency. Sure, so this can go and get them a white source to put in an equipment. We're going to end up with dueling Kaldras here. Or do they only have the Batterskull? Source to Plowshares on our Stoneforge Mystic. Sure. That means our opponent is not putting something into play right now to stop this. Interesting. An Oswald Fiddlebender. Guess that makes our choices a little bit easier moving forward. He's got spare Fiddlebender just hanging around now. Play as Fiddlebender. If they remove it, then we've got another one. And they might have to use white mana to remove it since that appears to be their removal colour. Okay. Next time we can play Painter's Servant and tutor up a Grindstone using this Ancient Den. And then we have the win pretty much locked up with our combo that's going to force our opponent to do something. So we're going to have to answer our combo as well as our Phyrexian Germ token. So we're kind of trying to pressure our opponent on multiple axes here. In a lot of ways, the Fiddlebender's scarier because it represents so many different things, but we don't have any artifacts in play right now, so they might think it's okay to concentrate on the Germ token, which is threatening their life total right now. But they can throw a Batterskull in front of it, or possibly their own Kaldra if they have one. Alright, they're brainstorming instead. So they might be trying to brainstorm and hit a white mana source here, which is a little bit greedy, but I think they might be under a situation where if they don't do that, they're going to lose anyway. It might just buy them one turn. They did not play a mana source here. This is great for us, terrible for our opponent. They have told us that we can Wasteland them freely here, so we're going to do just that. I love Wasteland. It's one of my all-time favourite cards. It's a nice punish for people playing mana bases that are a bit squiffy. Right, opponent's gone to 3. I think we play out our... I kind of don't want to play out our Painter's Servant, but I think we're not going to get caught by a sweeper here. So having something that means we can win the game next turn if our opponent... What do we want this to be? I don't think it matters. We don't want it to be blue. I want it white. So we don't want... yes, if they have a way of removing our Phyrexian Germ token, we have a different win lined up this turn as well. Alternatively, we can get a Crucible and Wasteland them into the dirt, but I don't think that's worth doing. Right, they're going to clean up here. So we can play out this Ancient Den. We'll sacrifice this artifact for a Grindstone. So we have our opponent dead with damage and with mill this turn. largely thanks to your friend of mine, Wasteland. Those two Wastelands really helped us out there. Alright, so our opponent is like Jeskai's Stoneblade by the looks of it. So what would we like against Jeskai's Stoneblade deck? I don't know if they're playing Murktides, so I don't know how useful this Sulgai Lantern is going to be. The Pithing Needle is an interesting one. It can name Stoneforge Mystic. But we also have our own Stoneforge Mystic, so a little bit awkward with that one. So maybe this is one we're looking to possibly trim here. Deafening Silence actually has some useful text here and there. I think we're going to want ways of dealing with Kaldra tokens and things like that. So the March for the World Light feels like the best of those options to us. If they're like a slower grinder control deck, I like the ability to be able to Sulgai Lantern, to Retrofitter Foundry and stuff. The Storyteller, I definitely think we want the late game stuff there. The Canonist, I like. The Sentinel, I like. I think Oswald probably gets trimmed here because they're going to have some amount of Karakas. So this is a slight tweak to what our deck is doing. I think the Portable Hole is okay, but could be a bit of a liability in the face of some of the things our opponent can deploy. So things like Meltdown is what I suspect our opponent's red mana is for, which makes me want to trim the Skrelv and the Hole for Plows, just so we don't get killed by those things. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to be super worried about. Portable Hole is a nice flexible answer stuff, but obviously we're replacing that with flexible answers in March for the Worldly Light. I think we just run about like this, and then we get a better feel for it. Like, I'm almost tempted to trade an Oswald for a Lion Sash. But I think we're going to leave it with 3 Oswalds here. And hopefully we don't regret that and just get Karakas out of the game. But we do have Wasteland, so this plays a pretty good Urza Saga game. We have Wasteland as well. I think we can keep this. Urza Saga, very good against slower controller decks. We don't know where on the control spectrum our opponent is. I have to imagine they're not heavy on threats. I think the last few Stoneforge lists I saw were running Stoneforge Mystic pretty much as a guy on its own with not out much more to support it, apart from like Staff the Storyteller and things. So we can lead out with a Grindstone because we've got spare Grindstone. So if our opponent wastes resources on this, we don't really mind. It just becomes a duress effectively because it's going to take out a Prismatic Ending, which also stops our opponent from deploying a turn to Stoneforge Mystic potentially, but we'll see. I imagine our opponent's going to be fetching basics this game, if possible, that is. So I imagine it's going to get basic planes, and we might see a Prismatic Ending on our Grindstone. Yeah. A Staff of the Storyteller. Sure. Good card. Cool people play this card, I hear. Okay, so we get to jam this Urza Saga, and we'll deploy this Canonist. This means our opponent only gets 1 spell a turn, pretty much. So if they're playing a cantrip, they can't cantrip into an answer unless it's an answer they get to play on our turn. So it's going to sort of slow their development down is the plan. Did they miss on land again? Or are they just getting their attacks in first? They've got a Staff of the Storyteller to draw with anyway, so I suspect if they don't have a land, they'll crack that and try and draw one. Oh no, they did have a land, they're just waiting until the second main to play it. That's fine. I'd rather our opponent didn't have lands, but I think it's not going to make for a great game if our opponent just gets mana screwed. Yep. So this is a Brainstorm is going to be their only spell of the turn, but they can obviously do stuff in our turn. They're looking to dodge Meltdown. Because of Meltdown, I don't really want to play this Ancient Den until like the turn I attack at least. Our opponent is representing 2 mana, which could be a Snapcaster Mage, which they could trade for our Ethersworn Canonist. I think we'll play out this Plains. I think I will go to attacks with the Canonist. So they want to trade a Snapcaster for our Canonist. That's not the end of the world. We didn't see Snapcasters before either, so... Right, so we're going to make a 3-3, which is then going to be a 4-4 and a 5-5. So we're going to end up with a lot of power very quickly. So our opponent is going to be pressured into removing our creatures in the very near future. And, okay, so they've all got basics here. It could be something like a back to basics from our opponent. We do have a lot of planes, so it's not as if our deck can't really function under that sort of thing. It's going to be a second Staff of the Storyteller, perhaps. They can cast a follow-up spell under Canonist if they want to. Okay, they're plane cycling. So this is somewhere in the Shark Tail type area. We don't know if they're running standstills or not. No red source as of yet to cast a Meltdown, which is reassuring, but feels like our opponent's setting up for a Supreme Verdict. So quite how far we play into that, I guess we'll see on our main phase whether or not we want a second token. They're getting attacks in. They are getting the attacks in. They've got to win the game somehow, right? They could also be representing a dress down here, which would be pretty annoying. Another Urza Saga. I guess this means we are just going all in on this one. We don't really have anything else to play here, so let's just make another token. Get ourselves some kind of artifact here. Retrofitter Foundry is going to be useful, but I think I just want the Saga Lantern. We're just going to take out that dragon right now. And then we can play another Saga. And that way, if we want to, we can draw off our Saga Lantern. Attacks here. They can dress down and just kill both of our tokens. We'll still get 2 damage in there. Yep, here's her dress down, as we thought. Yeah. We do have another Saga, though, to load up with. So that trade is basically even, right? Because we made 2 guys and ended up with a Saga Lantern out of it. Our opponent ended up with drawing another card off of it. And that's kind of a wash, really. We stopped our opponent from deploying another token, which gives them another card, so I'm not upset with that. If our opponent plays like a Volcanic Island, I think we have to Wasteland that to make sure our opponent doesn't get to make a Meltdown in our face. But they might just sandbag a Volcanic until they need to cast a Meltdown or have it available, which is what I would probably do in this situation if I were them. They can kind of do all their stuff with the mana they've got anyway, for the most part. So now we're looking at a potential Shark Typhoon for 2 here. An Ancient Den. Not a massive fan of Ancient Den being out of hand here. It does make the Wastelands a lot worse. Not the Wasteland, the Meltdowns a lot worse for us. So we can attack here, and we might be forced to plow a Shark. Or we could hold back. I think we hold back and don't attack into the Shark. And we save our plow for something scarier. They did not have a Shark. Interesting. They're going to need a second dress down or a Meltdown to deal with our as a Saga. There's a Flooded Strand. That can find a bunch of stuff for them. If they have red sources they want to chew up, they're probably going to have one they can fetch with this. Right, let's make some more guys. So these guys are going to be bigger because we've got more artifacts since last time. So there's a 5/5, then this next one will be bigger. Yeah, we're just making this based on what we've drawn. That makes sense. Force them to use resources to deal with our massive yachts. I think this time we can get Retrofitter Foundry and start playing this game. Do I want to risk the Ancient Den for 1 extra point of damage here? 7 is going to be pretty lethal anyway. I think we're just going to play out our Wasteland here and go to attacks. They didn't have a Shark last time. That doesn't mean they don't have one now, but they played land. I think we're going to attack with a Canonist. Actually, it doesn't really change the clock, actually, does it? Then we just attack with this guy. Okay, so we're getting a chump block here. So if this gets a red source, it's one we can Wasteland, but they probably won't get a red source unless they're about to cast Meltdown. So we won't get a window to smash it before they get to put the mana into the pool. So we have lethal damage on board. Our opponent needs something. If they have a Supreme Verdict, that's pretty good. We can then start doing Retrofitter Foundry stuff, but that is putting us a long way behind where we are right now. This is just a prismatic ending on our Retrofitter Foundry. This is the only spell they get to cast this turn. That's interesting to me. I'm not doing anything else with our mana here. If they make a... Yeah, if they cycle their thing, we can still exile it. So I think we are... Okay, that's their non-artifact spell for the turn. And then they're conceding. Sure. So we kind of saw the power of Urza Saga, which is kind of one of the things that makes this deck tick, is that you just get to go through your opponents quite nicely if they're sort of dirtily control decks. So pretty happy about that one. So that was a game that we won with Mana Disruption again and Stoneforge Mystic, and then this one was just an Urza Saga beatdown. So we're really showcasing the different lines this deck can take, and we are 4-0 looking to go into a trophy match. So let's see if we can get the trophy with the deck. We're on the play. We're pretty cold to Wasteland, pretty cold to Blood Moon, but we do have the combo sewn up. I think we do keep this one, because the Oswald can turn this into something else. But I think we start off on the Skrelv to try and protect some of our stuff. Saprazan's scary. Okay, this is going to be one of these make you Narset Hull Breacher decks. So not a big fan of having to deal with that. I think the best thing we can do here is play Urza Saga, followed by Oswald Fiddlebender. That way, if we do get hit, we at least get to have a Grindstone effectively in play, and then also a thing that can fetch our Painter's Servant. This might get a counter spell, which isn't the worst for us, as long as they can't just immediately reload. Force of Will, pitching Seagate Restoration. Sure. Do we attack with Skrelv? I think our opponent is not really going to be targeting our guys that much. I think we can just get this 1 point damage in. It might not be relevant, but it's 1 damage and 1 poison. So it's a 10-turn clock on its own. I suspect our opponent will kill us before then. Khan the Great Creator. Yep, that's pretty good against us. What are they getting here? Liquid Metal Coating? Or they got something spicier. There's the Liquid Metal Coating, sure. A Karakas. Okay, we go to attacks here. Khan, I guess. And we're playing out our Fiddlebender here. And then we can Fiddlebend away the Ancient Den, which is something. So there's the Liquid Metal Coating we know about. We're probably going to lose our Plains or our Urza Saga this turn. It's the Saga, sure. But we can kill the Khan. Although our opponent can make it through. Okay, they're doing something else here. A Spell Bomb, sure. They're just going to immediately bounce our Fiddlebender. Yes. Okay. And another Saprazan Scary. A Pithing Needle. That's not a horrible one, is it? So, plays Karakas. We will play out this Pithing Needle. They had another Force of Will, pitching Narset. Okay. So we get attacks. This one will attack Khan the Great Creator. But try and keep its loyalty relatively in check. Our opponent doesn't really have anything going on apart from this Khan. So if we can draw another land and play this Fiddlebender, I think we'll be okay. Because the thing about these Hull Breacher decks is they kind of don't always do anything. This is like Khan Echoes more so, perhaps, but we'll see. We did not hit the land here, so that's a little bit annoying. So we're going to attacks. Maybe we're supposed to have been attacking our opponent here. I think this is going to go up to 4 now, which is a lot. So maybe we're just supposed to hope that our opponent bricks for long enough. I'll play our Grindstone here. Our opponent is very much in the lead in this game. So they have a Saga of their own now. So this is the way they're going to win the game. Just slave stripping. I'm surprised they didn't take out our Karakas here. They're just going to Rishdam Port it with the Liquid Metal Coating here. They can tap it on this. Stoneforge Mystic. This isn't really doing us anything. Let's go to attacks. Attack them. If we can draw like a guy, we might be able to give it hexproof, give it toxic enough times to get through. I suspect we are just dead here, but we might as well see more of our opponent's deck. See if there's any interesting or unusual pieces of tech that we're looking out for. Our opponent can Microsynth lock us out of the game as well if they want to this turn with a Lattice Lock. They chose not to. They're just going to make constructs. That's fair enough. So we can't attack into their Saga anymore. We have a Wasteland, so we can only give them 1 token if we want to. I think we have to do that. So they're going to get 1 construct token here. They're on 9. This is a 4 power guy, so it's going to be tough. But our opponent is... Alright, so now they're just going to get the Lattice Lock. Oh, they've got Skyships. Sure. I think we can call it a day here. Let's go to game 2. So, we didn't see Hull Breachers yet, but that doesn't mean they didn't have them. So, the round of the third path is going to be good here, as are these Much for the Worldly Lights. Other than that, Deafening Silence is going to be a real workhorse here, whereas the Canonist is probably going to be pretty medium at best. They did seem like they were more of Khan Echoes rather than straight up Hull Breacher, but I think we have to respect the fact that they might have Hull Breacher. Portable Hold is something we're probably going to have to consider. The Retrofitter Foundry can pressure Planeswalkers a little bit, so I don't hate that. Crucible of Worlds, we might be able to strip mine our opponent out of this game, so that's another thing that I don't want to really remove. Skrelv, they're not really going to be targeting our guys very much, so maybe we're not looking at our Mother of Runes and Skrelvs at all here, which means we have 1 more slot if we want to do anything here. We could play a Sword to Plowshares, so we can hedge against big guys potentially. Pithing Needle on Khan is obviously very good. Do we want Soul Guide Lantern in case they are playing Echo? How often are they going to put Echo in their graveyard when they're not casting it though? Very rarely. I think I'd rather have a removal spell for a Hull Breacher. Other than that, Staff of the Storyteller can pressure Khan a little bit. That seems fine. Esper Sentinel does some good work here. Okay, I think we're going to submit like this. I don't particularly think that the Khan Echoes deck is that good, but it can certainly do a number on us if we're not careful. We have 2 sideboard cards here, which is a good start. Our opponent tends to not to have that many pieces for us to worry about. So let's see if we can get an Esper Sentinel into play. We did get an Esper Sentinel into play. So this is going to force our opponent to give us some extra cards, which is nice. This Ancient Den is really annoying, and I'd rather we didn't have it. Okay, a Wasteland would be a great draw for us. Are they going to play a Lotus Petal tapping 1? I suspect that's what we're seeing here. Yeah. Not my first rodeo. Okay. It's over to us. So they might not be aware of this, but we can March for the Worldly Light and Urza Saga, which is quite a potent thing to do. That does mean we're not casting any other spells this turn. Would I rather have another spell this turn, or would I rather get rid of this Urza Saga? I think I should just be getting rid of the Saga here. So let's get rid of this. Do we do it in our opponent's upkeep, or do we do it now? I think we do it now. This way, if they Force of Will now, they have to pay, or we draw a card, and then on their turn, if they cast a spell. Sure, there's a Force of Negation, exiling Hullbreacher. Okay, we get to draw a card off of that. Next turn, we get to make the Loran, and hopefully that will do some work. So we did play into Force of Negation there, but we did get a card out of it. I think that is the correct thing to do there. Okay, what is this? A Hullbreacher. Understood. A Lion's Eye Diamond. Okay. I imagine we're in trouble here. Pithing Needle. What is this going to name? Grindstone? Yeah. Okay, they're just passing a turn. Interesting. So, what are we looking at here? Our opponent has 1 card in hand. I think if they had the wheel, they'd have just spun it then. So I think we are supposed to just start Loranning their whole board away. So I think we start with blowing up their Urza Saga. They will be getting a load of treasures here from the Hullbreacher, unfortunately, because they can just play spells into it. But we get to recycle this every turn and just slowly blow up our opponent's permanents. They had a Day's Undoing. That's pretty unfortunate. Sure. Feels like we may not be getting the trophy, but we might do. These decks are very poor at closing the game, so we might be alright. Is it worth attacking with the Loran here? I guess we do attack, because if we get the damage in... Like, we're going to bounce it anyway. If they want to block here, we can then bounce afterwards. Alright. Do we try and replay this in the face of all of those blue cards that our opponent might have is the question. Like, what would we be blowing up? A Lion's Eye Diamond isn't that scary. I don't think it's worth risking a Force of Will on our guy. It's going to be a large Walking Ballista. Seagate Restoration. Sure, so they get treasure. So we're just getting kind of done. We did board in some path to some Source of Plowshares, but we have not found them, so I think we're in trouble here. It's kind of funny that our opponent's done the thing the deck's supposed to do, but it doesn't win them the game. It kind of just puts them quite far ahead. But that's bad. Okay, so there's a Force of Will underneath there. That's 1 less Force of Will. That probably means our opponent has multiple Force of Wills. Is this Hullbreacher coming in? Probably not. They've got Saga they're going to start working on soon. We have a Plow. Maybe we try and do that Plow at an opportune moment. Let's try and attack. They're going to put the Hullbreacher in front of it this time? No. Alright. I think we're just going to hold at this Plow. In case they try and do another wheel, we can kill this in response. Another Hullbreacher. That's not great. I'm surprised they didn't offer the trade in that case. So we might have to, like, Plow a Saga token? I don't know. It feels like a lot has to go right for us to win this game. So they get free treasure just from casting a spell because of how Hullbreacher works with our Esper Sentinel. This is unfortunate. We couldn't Plow in response because they had 2 Hullbreachers, so they'd get treasure either way. We're kind of just going to wait for our opportune moment for this Plow. Again, our opponent's got all this mana, but has shown us very little to do with it. They're just trying to win with an Urza Saga by the looks of it. Alright, we're getting a Khan here. That's a very real threat. They can probably make a Lattice this turn. Sure, it looks like they're making Lattice. Let's get rid of one of these guys. Okay, so we need to kill Khan. How can we play this game and kill the Khan? That's a real question. I think the answer is we can't. I guess we attack Khan with everything. If our opponent makes a mistake, we might be okay, but I imagine our opponent will just block and kill the Esper Sentinel or our Lorana the third path. Sure. And now they can just make Saga tokens, but they did make a Saga token last turn, which I think was a mistake. We'll play out land. Yeah, I think this one's over. There's not really much we can do here. So this deck is very fragile, and I'm not convinced it's a particularly good one, but it can have draws where it just windmills you out of the game and does the whole you don't get to draw any cards and your opponent gets like a million cards. Okay, they've made a token, they've got there. Right, so we did not get the trophy. We just missed out on this one. It's a bit annoying to lose to that deck, really, but you know, it still plays good cards and things. I think it's just very poor at closing the game, and it's very fragile. Like if you take out one of their hull breaches at the right time, then their deck doesn't really do anything. It just gives you a free reload. So I'm not a big fan of it. But anyway, enough about our opponent's deck. They beat us fair and square, so good on them. All right, let's talk about the deck. So this restoration of the deck felt pretty good. We were pretty close to a trophy. We did get a little bit lucky on some matchups, but we showcased all the different lines the deck can take. So we had a 1-2-3 kill them with Grindstone, Painter, pay 3 mana, kill them. So we had one of those. We had an Urza Saga beatdown games. We had Oswald finding like the combo for us in a sort of slightly longer game. We had a Stoneforge Mystic. We had a few Stoneforge Mystic games where we just played the Mystic and just beat our opponent down. That was all pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with how this list looks. I think probably the weak link right now is Skrelv. Let's put it down here. I've not really been impressed with this, and I think the fact that it doesn't really work in combat is kind of annoying. It's good when you're offensive in combat, but it's very bad defensively in combat, whereas Mother of Runes kind of just does better things. And I think it's a little bit of a liability to have a Mother of Runes that gets swept up by Meltdown. So I'm not convinced by the Skrelv, especially since we have a lot of stuff going on here anyway. So like, you don't really need to give protection to things like Kaldra and Batterskull. They kind of do their own jam anyway. So I think where Skrelv will be better in the traditional plumber lists, which don't run Stoneforge or Staff and just run the Ingenious Smith as a way of like finding your combo, and it can sort of be a bit of a beatdown guy as well. I think the Skrelv is better in those lists. It's also another hit, but I think for me, I'd rather just have a 4th Esper Sentinel. So I think next time I play this, I'm probably going to have 4 Esper Sentinel. But other than that, I think the main deck is really nice about now. I don't really think I want to change anything here. I like it. Sideboard wise, we don't really have any like, we can't play any smash all your opponent's artifacts type spells in our deck really. So we don't really have that against our opponent. We could play something like Null Rod and just try and go for beatdown against decks like the Karn Echoes, but that doesn't feel great when our deck is very heavily built around artifacts. So those matchups are always going to be a little bit annoying. I never really liked the 8-cast matchup very much either. But I think we definitely have a pretty good selection of tools here. Maybe I should have boarded in more plows for the Hull Breacher. That probably would have been a better shout, to be honest. So that's probably on me a little bit. I think game 1, we lost because we drew an Ancient Den. If that had been a basic land or any other land in our deck, then I think we win that game. That game 1. So the Ancient Dens are useful for the purposes of Oswald, but they do come at a real cost, and I think losing that game sort of illustrates that quite nicely. But then again, we had another game where we had the Ancient Den to go and find the Grindstone for the win. So, you know, that's both sides of the coin there. Other than that, I think maybe because of stuff the Storyteller is sort of our big draw engine now, I don't think we need 2 Horizon Canopies. I think we can run another Plains in this slot. So I think I'll probably go up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe go up to 9 Plains. This could also be another Eiganjo, but I just like having basic Plains, to be honest. I think having the ability to play around Wasteland easily is worth its weight in gold. as well as being able to get right through Blood Moons and all sorts of stuff. I just think I want more basics, because we've got quite a few non-basics here already, right? You know, we do have a Horizon Canopy. I think we do want to keep one of them, but we've got our Ancient Dens and our Eiganjo, and we've also got these, which are big Wasteland targets, and are obviously very bad against Blood Moon, because obviously Urza Saga can't even tap for mana; it just immediately dies in the face of a Blood Moon. So just having another Plains here, I think, would be quite nice. So that's probably what I'm doing next time: is -1 Canopy, -1 Skrelv, +1 Esper Sentinel, +1 Plains. I think that's the main deck for next time. Sideboard wise, not sure. Maybe another March of Otherworldly Light would be helpful. Perhaps we should be trimming the sash for a March of Otherworldly Light. I think that might be quite just a nice thing to have. Like, we certainly bordered it in a fair bit, so I wouldn't mind having that. That's more or less what I'm thinking, just little tweaks. Now, there are definitely versions of this where you can play the Leyline, but I think I'd rather just have Containment Priests and a bunch of artifact stuff. Leyline is definitely better, for sure, if you want to hose graveyards. But I think the fact that Containment Priest hoses the Elf matchup as well is really, really potent. And, you know, Show and Tell. There's just multiple things that Containment Priest does that Leyline doesn't. And when we've only got like 3 or so slots, I think that's better. And in terms of the graveyard hate we've got, again, we have Grafdigger's Cage because it's good against elves. So it's just the Lion Sash is the other piece of graveyard hate. We do still have the Soul Guide Lantern. So, yeah, I think that's roughly where we're going. We can, if we've got a combo hand, we can race Reanimator. But if they just smash your hand apart, it's pretty bad news anyway. So this is, and sometimes you Show and Tell. If someone casts a Show and Tell, you can put in a Kaldra Compleat as well, post board against the Reanimator decks if they expect you to have graveyard hate. And Kaldra Compleat can actually do a lot of work. It makes drawing cards of Grizzlebrand come at a real cost, and it's not something they can necessarily remove either. So you can kind of just bash away. But yeah, really happy with how the deck's feeling right now. I've said many times I have this deck in paper and it's foiled. Obviously, there's no foil stuff for the Storyteller yet, so it's not foil, and there's no foil Retrofitter Foundry apart from the Judge one, but I've got all modern borders on all of my cards in this deck, so it doesn't really fit in. But yeah, I like this deck for many reasons, hopefully many of which I've showcased today. Alright, if you're still here, like, comment, subscribe. These things cost you nothing and help me out. If you want to become a member of the channel or support me on Patreon, you can do that. There's links in the description. Also, you can come and join my Discord. That link is in the description too. Soon, for my Patreon, I'm also going to have a primer for Green-Black Turbo Depths, which is a deck that I play quite often on the channel. It's quite near and dear to my heart, and I qualified for the European Legacy Masters with it. So I think it's a good deck, and there's going to be a big primer on that on one of the Patreon levels. So keep an eye out for that in coming weeks. All right, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.